This is one of, if not the worst Family Guy episode of all time. First of all, the plot for this episode is incredibly horrific and I refuse to describe it. It is all over the place, horribly paced, and I cannot describe it without paraphrasing what the characters are doing on screen like some Quentin Reviews video. This episode sucked. Apparently they wanted to make some big special or crazy start to the season because it's a two-parter followed by the next episode, but they failed so badly I have no clue how it even happened. I do not know where to start on this one. First of all, not one joke lands, the humor is incredibly bad. Then we have the episode structure. What the fuck even happened here? Whoever wrote this or aka arranged the scenes in this order had no future as a writer, I can guarantee you. The first 15 minutes consist of an A and a B plot, both of which change plot points within themselves 4 times each. That is the plot being changed 8 times in 15 minutes. And on top of that, they never even focus on anything. The longest scene in the first 15 minutes is like 30 seconds long. It is headache-inducing to watch this episode. The plot makes zero sense. They put 2 30-second segments of each 2 plots in a 2-minute space and then they switch the points for both of them. It makes no sense, I can't even describe it. And the plot points are so horribly paced as well. For example, the Brian helps old people stuff in the beginning of the episode. He starts out in one scene. Then we see Peter do irrelevant bullshit. The next scene, he already quits and goes to Joe. And everything from the 15-minute mark onwards, oh boy, it sucks as well. First of all, they merge both plots in the stupidest way possible. Brian goes into rehab and then Peter follows along because he won a vacation. Problem is that he booked a cruise and has been specifically preparing for that cruise the entire fucking episode. So that's completely pointless again. They make some bad jokes and then Brian gets home to a welcome from rehab party and just leaves. That's it. I was confused when I first saw this. I have rewatched this episode again. This is the worst ending to an episode of television I have ever witnessed. I am not kidding when I say this. This is unprompted. There is no context or build-up and no purpose. Brian heads out, goes into a taxi and leaves. That is the end and then to be continued flashes on screen. Fuck you. There is no build-up to this. There is no talk at the rehab clinic where Brian states he wants to leave. There is nothing. He leaves, that's it. This has no context. I am simply done writing about this episode, I'm sorry. I do not know where to start. It is horrible though. One of, if not the worst Family Guy episodes of all time. I'm done. What a horrific start to the season, even on my behalf. I can't put into words how much I hate this episode. It's the first episode on the list, but I can already spoil you, this is the worst episode of the season.
So, Peter, where should we go for your week off?
Well, I was thinking we could all go to Purgatory like we did last year.
This isn't bad. It's not that good, but yeah, it's not that bad.
Okay, now part 2 to this incredibly horrible start to the season, and it's pretty alright. Basically, Brian leaves for Hollywood here and we get to see some of his life in Hollywood. Meanwhile, the family goes to Hollywood themselves after being flown out for a TV show named Kids Say the Darndest Things, because Stewie got cast for an episode, which I really think they should have focused more on. It's way better than whatever Brian does here. Basically, Brian gets casted as a director for a porn movie and even wins an award and tries to hide it from his family, which he specifically invited to his set before even knowing that he was directing a porn movie. That's it. I have to say, this episode was better than the last one, but that isn't saying much. I thought Stewie was extremely funny and cool to see here, and this is the first time they actually give one of his plots a good conclusion. And also, I like the concept of it. The other plot though, I can't say the same thing. I thought that the premise was pretty okay, but Brian, being the main character, instantly makes any sort of story mediocre at best. He's just unlikable at worst here, and when he's at his best, he's replaceable and shitty. He's only really ever funny when he's getting shit on by Stewie for being a pseudo-intellectual asshole and not being put in the spotlight for it. There's like a 2-minute scene of him bitching and whining that his co-worker got successful at the beginning. He's just an asshole, why should I ever feel sorry for him? But this episode wasn't gruesome like the last one, just mediocre, going at the top of the list. I have to say, season 3 is the weakest one so far. Hopefully they snap out of it in the next episode.
And now back to Kids Say the Darndest Things. It's okay, take your time. Then what happened?
He said he would kill me if I ever said anything.
Do you remember what he looked like?
Yeah, he had a scar on his arm, and he had a big, stupid doo-doo head.
A big, stupid doo-doo head!
Peter's company gets bought out by a cigarette company, and the people that are now the CEOs make him president of the company to convince everybody that smoking is cool and the industry is full of light-hearted people, sending him to Congress to convince them that an anti-smoking bill that was proposed shouldn't go through. Within Congress, he sees Stewie smoking and effectively says the equivalent of, "No, this can't be," and just denies doing what he's supposed to do, leaving us with the deep message of cigarettes are bad. Wow, very deep. Then we have no clue what happens after that. The company Peter is the literal president of gets fined $100 million. He should be out of a job and millions in debt, but no, apparently not. Personally, I believe this isn't even much better than the 2 episodes that came before this. It's just boring. I really have no clue how they went from season 2, one of the best seasons of any TV show I've ever seen, to this. It all feels so pointless. The characters just bounce around from plot to plot. The plots suck. It's all so tiresome. Like, be for real, let's take a look at how Peter is made president. He just goes to the CEOs, says they suck and smoking suck, and they make him president. What? On top of that, the humor doesn't hit at all. Like, most of it is just taking some random politician, which I assume were actually in office at the time, and just saying, "Well, politician, you make politician face. You sure did that thing," and then just moving on. That's it. Those are the jokes. It's all so boring and shitty to sit through, going between the last 2 episodes.
Trust me, Peter, the last thing we want is to get kids to start smoking.
Well, then what about that graph on the wall that says the first thing we want is to get kids to start smoking?
That? Oh, that's just something my son made me in art class.
Huh. Well, then what about that poster that says the graph was not made in art class? We really do want kids to start smoking.
Quahog gets invaded by British people after a storm. Weird plot point, but I don't mind. And Peter hates them. But after a little conquest to kick out the British, which is mainly just independence war stuff like, wouldn't it be funny if we threw away the tea of the British and called it the Tea Party? Peter being oblivious to the fact that these things didn't really happen doesn't make it funny, you know. The new British bar gets set on fire, resulting in everybody blaming it on Peter. So Peter and his friends go to jail, while Lois tries to prove that Peter really didn't set the bar on fire. So he's set free because he really didn't set the bar on fire, and the British man that owned the bar and really set it on fire gets arrested for insurance fraud. And also all the British people just despawn, they never really go anywhere. At the end of the episode they just go to the next one. Anyways, this episode is a wonderful return to form. As stupid of a plot as British people's spawn rates increase in Quahog by 10% may be, I think this is a funny episode. Also, I love episodes where characters go to jail, especially when they're all in one cell together. Something about those plotlines just strikes me, I don't know what it is. Also, I like the side plot here, where Stewie just tries to teach some British girl American pronunciation. It's funny seeing him get so unreasonably irritated over something this minuscule and thinking the girl's pronouncing words wrong. Really goes to show how he's just a baby, an aspect of his character long forgotten in modern times. It's funny because last season basically all Stewie plots were just incredible time wasters with no conclusion, but this season they're carrying the episodes. Only thing I didn't like here was the Spanish reporter. I don't know why they would possibly insert a second Trisha in the show. She has nowhere near the charm Trisha has, and has no unique character traits, so I don't know why they inserted here. Anyways, that's just a minuscule detail though. This episode is going at the top of the list. Even though, stopping to think about it, this is pure mediocre middle of the road by season 2 standards. But you know what, who cares, they called themselves, let's hope it doesn't slip again.
Wait a minute. Something's different.
Evening, gents. How about a nice warm lager?
And help yourself to a packet of crisps.
Or a ruddy nice plum pudding.
Holy crap! It's a gay bar!
Meg is ostracized by the popular kids, for example Connie and Miko, so Lois helps her get revenge. I noticed here that they effectively replaced her entire clique with other characters. They aren't important in any way, so I wonder why they went to the effort of redesigning them when the old characters were just sitting right there and they were interchangeable, but anyways. Meanwhile, Peter gets jealous of Chris for having a bigger dick than him, so he tries to compensate it, but in the end they make up. This episode wasn't as good as the last one, but overall still pretty enjoyable. The only thing I found sort of weird here was the Chris and Peter stuff. Like, could it seriously not have been anything else? We're at season 3 and you're already bringing out the familiar size comparison context. That's just fucking odd, especially considering Chris is 13 here. Yeah, but anyways, I don't want to sound like an oversensitive Twitter fag, it's not that bad. Also, the Meg side plot was so satisfying to see. Connie D'Amico is perhaps the only character I like as than Brian, which is self-explanatory because she is made to sound like a bitch, but anyways, still something I love to see. Even though the hashtag epic con part only happens for like 4 seconds at the end, and it's just Quagmire being a pedophile.
Hey there, sweetie. How old are you?
16.
18. You're first.
Mom!
But anyways, in total, we just have a sort of weird plotline that was still pretty enjoyable though, and one satisfying one that wasn't all that interesting though, going in second.
Hey, Chris, you want to race? Any market set, go! First one to the marker where that Pakistani girl fell through the ice after coming to the States to get treatment for her severely burned face, which she got when the man she refused to marry dumped sulfuric acid on her wins. I win!
Peter goes golfing on his anniversary with Lois, but there he has a near-death experience, which results in Death showing up and telling Peter how he met Lois and giving some flashbacks, which is dope as fuck because we also get to see how he met Quagmire in Cleveland. As basic of a plot as this and how much of a potential disaster this could have been, considering it's Family Guy and heartfelt stories never go well here, I really believe this episode is easily the best this season so far. The writers did a really good job encapsulating that fresh, heartwarming love feeling here, and this episode is really impactful considering we've never seen any flashbacks of how Peter and Lois got together before. It's always just been there together. Yay. The way they decided to make Carter the main problem here instead of Peter being mentally retarded is also a great choice as well. We've seen enough episodes where Peter is a problem, Carter being opposed here is just way better, and also way more fitting considering how rich the Schmidt family is. So it makes sense they'd be opposed to Lois marrying some village idiot like Peter. Also, am I the only one that's noticing how Dev does way too much in these earlier episodes? Like, I'm pretty sure he's gotten more important plotlines than half of the main cast. Same for Tom Tucker and Diane Simmons. I'm pretty sure they've gotten more lines than Chris and Brian. Anyways, this is a very good episode, going in first.
Oh, kids, you don't need to do anything special for our anniversary. Just your father.
I hope he doesn't wait and get your gift at the last minute again.
My goodness, a human thumb. Where did you ever find this?
It was on eBay.
This episode's plot is too fucking disoriented and jam-packed, I won't even begin to explain it. Basically, the first 6 minutes are unfunny New York jokes, then it's 5 minutes of Lois learning to fight, 2 minutes of actually good and interesting scenes, and the rest is just whatever. It's Lois, Peter, and the family in general fighting. I'm not even kidding, there's a 2-minute long scene of them all fighting in the end, and what seems like a budget chicken fight. And then everything is back to normal, even though Lois and Peter just had insane marital problems like 2 minutes ago, and Stewie was at therapy. This episode has no plot, it's just trying to be funny in the first 6 minutes, which fails so horribly. None of the jokes land at all, it's either just New Yorkers and their accents, am I right fellas? Or overly specific jokes about certain artists that I've never even heard of before. Then the Lois fighting plot was okay, but from there on out I have genuinely no clue what they even did. I am not exaggerating, gun to head, I could not describe you or summarize the last 9 or so minutes of this episode. Watch this episode for yourself, it's confusing and just pointless. It's like they needed to produce one more episode and they had a week left to submit the season, so they gave some random co-worker the task of coming up with a plot for an episode and writing it in like an hour. If I wrote this stupid piece, I wouldn't even put my name on it. What a dreadful episode, going between the Finlight Wine and Bright as Hollywood.
And shame on the network that puts this junk on the air.
Peter, maybe you shouldn't say anything bad about the network.
Oh, why? What are they gonna do? Cut our budget? I wanna go get a beer.
They're the only funny joke of the episode. Meg starts working as an unpaid intern at Channel 5 because she falls in love with Tom Tucker. While there, she's forced to work with Neil Goldman. Neil then kisses Meg during a special report because he's madly in love with her, leading to Meg doing a report on why he's disgusting and that was only out of an emergency. Neil then wants to kill himself, but Meg saves his life. There's also this side plot about Stewie getting his tricycle stolen by a bully, which I thought was pretty neat, but I didn't like the way they wrapped it up. It was just sort of so it goes, "Oh Stewie, look at what I found," even though we very clearly see the tricycle get stolen by a bully, but who cares, I like the plot. Overall, this is a really good one, and one of the first good episodes this season. The only critique I have here is that Meg doesn't really learn anything by the end. She just sort of goes, "Neil Goldman, you disgusting, dirty, retarded, awful, stupid freak! I hate you! But don't kill yourself." Which sort of sucks because I want them to go somewhere with this relationship. They've not done anything really impactful yet except for maybe the thin white line. But that was such a fucking catastrophe, I won't count it. On top of that, it only lasted like an episode, so who cares? Overall, I do think this episode was one of the best ones so far, and I think that's mainly because they stayed away from pop culture references here. Like, I get making episodes or little jokes regarding genuinely big things happening at the time, but trust me, the last 3 episodes of the show were so genuinely jam-packed with cutaways and gags regarding random actors that died 5 years ago at this point, and nothing was funny. This episode really only had like 2 of those jokes, so I found it way funnier. Going behind Death Lives. Peter accidentally kills his boss, Mr. Wheat? Yes, something French. Anyways, and he gets a new job as a jouster at the medieval festival. What? This is one of those episodes where when you're watching, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with it. But then you finish the episode and you realize, wait a minute, what the fuck did I just even watch? There's literally nothing to say, the plot is way too far-fetched and sucks, and most of the comedy consists of making fun of Mort for some reason. Also, they don't give Peter his job back by the end of the episode and even acknowledge it within the episode.
What's that gonna do for a job?
Oh, it'll be okay, Chris. Remember that episode of The Honeymooners when Ralph lost his job, but at the end of the show he didn't get it back?
Oh yeah, what was up with that? That bugged the crap out of me.
But you know, airtime restrictions, right? Could have possibly cut out the 2-minute scene of the kids singing a good night song to Mr. Wee and given the thing a normal conclusion, but just a suggestion in my book, I'm no writer. This episode was sort of boring, but I guess okay, it's going around the middle of the list. There's really nothing to say.
Yeah, I hope so, because if I blow this, I'm gonna have to go back to my old job at the electric company.
Duh.
At. Dot.
Buh.
Et.
Bet.
Bet. I knew that. Slow it down.
Puh.
It.
Pit.
Hit. Come on, pal. It's my first day.
Puh.
At.
Fat.
Oh, that's it, buddy.
Wow, what a genuinely funny and interesting episode. I am so surprised this came from season 3. Anyways, first of all, I want to apologize for what I said last episode. Apparently, Peter losing his job was canon. I just assumed he'd continue working at the factory just with a different boss, but apparently not. Anyways, Peter gets a job as a fisherman and buys a boat for $50,000. But because he can't afford it, he takes out a loan at a shady bank. But that doesn't work. Instead, they sell his house because it was in the fine print, and Peter needs to find a way to pay the bank $50,000 in 2 days. Then he finds this urban fisherman legend called Daggermouth, with a $50,000 reward for its killing. It turns out it was just a robot, but he still manages to kill it and claim the reward. Yippee. Meanwhile, Meg and Lois go on spring break together, and Lois gains all the popularity, in the end transferring it all to Meg though. I thought this plot was really awesome and funny, but there's nothing to note about it. Anyways, what an amazing episode, definitely one of the best ones so far. It's just so funny, they have a good joke at like every turn and corner and they don't need to put the characters in outlandish situations to pull it off. It's such a good episode. Simple plot, extended to the fullest, but it stays on topic the entire episode. Also, the fisherman job unlocked so many cool memories for me. I'm genuinely so surprised this was his long-term job in the series for like 2 seasons, and I wonder how it ended because I've never seen it mentioned on the internet. I just have vague memories of me watching episodes where Peter goes fishing and thinking it was odd because he worked at a brewery when I was like 10. I'm pretty damn sure there's a scene later in the series where Peter refers to his fishing mode as his not at all memorable job he had for 2 years. I'm not sure to point that out when it comes around. Anyhow, this is just one of those episodes where there's nothing to criticize. By the way, this is the 4th one so far and we're 38 episodes into the show, meaning there's a 1 in 10 rate of a perfect episode. That's very impressive. Going at the top of the list.
Hey, look everybody, it's Spuds McKenzie.
Another really good episode. Seems like they're making a big comeback after a terrible start to the season. Anyways, this episode is all about Stewie trying to prevent Peter and Lois from having another kid, up until he uses a shrinking robot to go inside of Peter's body, where he meets his unborn brother Bertram, and the two become very good friends. In the end, Lois and Peter decide against having another kid though, so everything went to waste. The only thing I didn't like about this one was the 6-minute plot. Like, surely there would have been easier ways to fill the episode. 6 minutes of unrelated bullshit is usually never a good idea. But I gotta give it to him, this time it was really funny at least. Seeing Peter act like a hyper-autist around Lois' sister Karen was a personal highlight for me this season. It's like if you mix young Sheldon with Stan Smith. I laughed at every scene. On top of that, I love the fact that they're slowly adding more and more impactful stuff to the series. Just last episode, they switched Peter's job. Now they're playing around with the closet monkey more, and they introduced Bertram. Bertram is one of my favorite characters in the show in my opinion. He only appears in a handful of episodes, but you know that when you see him on screen, it's usually gonna be awesome. The only other characters that can pull that off are Ernie Chicken and his chicken fights, or Trisha Takanawa. That always leads to good moments. Like seriously, I've never seen Trisha Takanawa used in a bad gag. She's just one of the all-time greats of fictional news reporters. Anyways, a really good episode, but would definitely have been way better without the 6-minute plot going in second.
And as soon as the baby can crawl, it'll probably leave me too, just like my 8 husbands.
Hey, Carol, it's me, Ted. Listen, I came back because I love you, and, no, I'm just kidding. It's me, Peter.
Chris gets assaulted by a man and helps out putting him in prison, but the man finds out who Chris is and tries to kill him. And as a result, the Griffin family are relocated to the Deep South by the FBI, and wacky antics ensue, resulting in the guy who is after Chris being killed. Call me biased, but this is the 2nd episode of Family Guy I ever watched after the boom, and is simultaneously one of the greatest Family Guy episodes of all time. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't end up in the top 10 overall. The plot and the writing is just incredible. This is the funniest episode so far next to A Fish Out of Water. On top of that, the premise for this episode is so cool, and they managed to get the characters into that situation without needing to make up some bullshit or spawning in an imaginary aunt. Okay, well, it did require a 6-minute plot, but I'd allow it considering the guy who broke out of prison doesn't just despawn after the Griffins get relocated. He's a recurring character in the episode, and his death leads to the conclusion. And also, how the hell are you even supposed to get the characters into the Deep South without a 6-minute plot and making something up? Then of course, I just need to add how well paced and written the plot for this episode is. I'm not kidding, I genuinely found myself baffled at the fact that the same team that wrote and created Lethal Weapons and A Thin Light Wine made this. Every character of the main cast gets a unique plotline related to the South. Peter and Brian are total idiots.
Okay, now you.
And also get a job as a sheriff, resulting in the Chris Killer being able to infiltrate the town later without any difficulty. Stewie gets a banjo and starts a banjo band, which I thought was funny as hell. They literally made a song specifically for this plot. Chris falls in love with a local girl named Sam, which he originally thought was a boy. This plot was especially interesting considering Chris tries to win over a girl in the beginning of the episode and can't because he's too awkward to talk to girls. But here, he thinks that Sam is a boy at first, so he finds himself having no problem talking to her later on, which was a neat thing to see and also left me rooting for him. You know, I really think they should do more Chris plots. Seeing him struggle with teenage problems and anxiety and overcoming them is basically a cheat code for a good episode. Then we also have Meg trying to impress her classmates by telling them all about the North, which was really funny in my opinion. It's good seeing them use Meg being an awkward teenage girl for more comedy, and that isn't totally mean-spirited for once. And finally Lois. Okay, well, Lois just sort of does nothing, but I don't care. They didn't think of a good plot for her, so they just didn't write her into the episode. Good solution. It's like every single scene in this episode is either actively working towards that final face-off at the end and establishing the Griffin family into the situation, or just isn't progressing the plot, but too short and too funny to be actually holding it up. Also, we see Mr. Herbert for the first time ever. Cool. Literally every scene of this episode is extremely enjoyable, going at the top of the list, one of the greatest Family Guy episodes ever.
Yeah, too bad you always blow it in the interview.
So, Peter, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Don't say doing your wife. Don't say doing your wife. Don't say doing your wife. Doing your son?
Ryan rapes a race dog owned by Carter Pewterschmidt, resulting in him wanting to disown the lowest branch of the family, which enrages Peter as he was on good terms with Carter at the moment. Even worse, the dog got pregnant. Ryan then tries to get custody of his puppies, which he succeeds in doing after Peter supports him in court. But they're not his puppies, so he doesn't get to keep them. This episode definitely wasn't bad. I did enjoy it, I just thought it was not at all that notable. My favorite part was undoubtedly Peter being on good terms with Carter for once. There's like this 2-minute montage of him trying to get more cultivated and smart at the beginning, but he just fucks everything up. I think they should have revolved the episode around that, with Brian's love only playing second fiddle. But no, Brian goes ahead and derails the episode into only being sort of decent. I'll say it again, Brian is only a good character when he gets shit on by Stewie for being a retard. Always has been true, always will be. He's an arrogant asshole. Whereas part of the episode trying to make the viewer feel compassion for him because he wants to be a father but won't be left alone. Which is so incredibly stupid. Gee fucking whiz, I wonder why you're not being left alone. You literally raped a family-owned race dog Peter bet thousands of dollars of poker earnings on, while she was running a race and nearly got Lois' entire branch of the family disowned, as well as ruining Carter's approval for Peter that he has been waiting for 20 years, all because you got a bit horny. I really don't get what people keep seeing in him. He's just such a prick. Giggity. Anyways, even though I hated Brian, I did still somewhat enjoy this episode. Going between the kiss scene around the world and one of by clan, two of by sea.
Wah! You like that? Huh? You like that? Wah! You just tune this out, don't you? Wah! Well, tune this out! Wah!
Peter takes Chris out to a library to discover his Irish heritage. But there, while looking at a genealogy book, he discovers that he has a brother. He's black. That's actually the plot of the episode. I have no clue why they named it that either. And he joins some black communities, gets reparation money, etc. The plot really isn't all too important here, it's mainly focused on the comedy. Also, Stewie takes over a high school cheerleading team in the meantime, which I thought was funny as well. There's not really a lot to say about this episode. I thought it was one of the funniest so far, but it had no real coherent plot, which I actually don't mind here, considering that it doesn't need to have one. It's just Peter doing one stupid thing after the other, and that's all it needs to be. My only critique here is that they get a little too up their own asses at the end. It's like they try to give the episode this big deep conclusion, but it just boils down to racism bad. But they throw in too many quick gaggy segments to actually filter out what message they wanted to convey, or more specific stuff, for example reparations. So there's this constant message of anti-racism being dangled over your head, but you just cannot quite grasp it. It's sort of weird. I wish they just ended the episode with Peter blowing the money he got from the reparations and deciding he's not black anymore or some other stupid shit. But anyways, it's still not that bad. And finally, off topic, but I feel like a literal caveman discovering fire right now. I've been watching these episodes on a very legal site, and I've just been watching them and recording me watching them with OBS, and just now have I found out that you can literally just download the episodes at the very bottom of the page. 3 seasons in, GG's. Yeah, anyways, going between Death Lives and Mission Impossible.
go on a rant here, but America's foreign policy makes about as much sense as Beowulf having sex with Robert Fulton at the First Battle of Antietam. I mean, when a neoconservative defenestrates, it's like Raskolnikov filibuster deoxymonohydroxynate.
The hell does rant mean?
And just like that, we are right back to shit again. Joe competes in the Special Olympics, and by the way, this is a split-application shot here, which pissed me off so bad. Is it really that difficult to just draw 6 normal flags, for fuck's sake? And wins by using steroids Peter put in his water without his knowledge. Then he becomes an icon, but then Peter exposes him because he was left behind. And there's an ending. Na Family Guy. What a boring ass plot. You know, Joe was never even a good character to begin with. I think the show would have been better if he just was never one. He's a crippled punching bag that's constantly made fun of and cucked by his wife in the later seasons. And here well, I don't know what he is, but here he fucking sucks. He's boring. He's just some average Joe Schmo that's not interesting. There's no character traits about him other than he's crippled. Meanwhile, Stewie, Chris and Meg fight over $26. A plot which I liked way more than I was expecting. I really think they should do more plots focusing on the children altogether instead of individually. I like the dynamics here. The problem is that doesn't even really have a conclusion as well. It's just a bit sucky, honestly. Overall, this episode isn't get genuinely fucking upset over the fact that you just spent 22 minutes of your precious time on this earth watching this abomination of an episode that, like the thin white line or lethal weapons, but it sucks. Going between Brian does Hollywood and Mr. Griffin goes to Washington.
Coming up in this half hour, our undercover expose on conveniently placed news reports in television shows. But first, Peter, look out for that skateboard.
Oh wow, our very first Christmas special, and one I was very excited for as well, considering I heard this was one of the best episodes of the show. Anyways, this episode's plot is too all over the place for me to actually describe it without paraphrasing what is actually done on screen, so if you want to understand the things I say about the episode, then go watch it right now, it's pretty good. But that's really all it is, though, pretty good. My main problem with this episode is how all over the place the plot is. It's not necessarily a big problem, it just sort of fits the episode, but it gets a bit irritating. Another problem I have with this is the episode is Lois going crazy at the end, and that seems to be some sort of big payoff or big end, but the problem is that the family ruined Christmas apparently, that's why she's so crazy, but it doesn't really make sense because 90% of the stuff that happened here was just unavoidable, like Peter getting some gift stolen by random people at the mall. It's pretty stupid in my opinion. I mean, it's a good episode, but that's really all there is. There's only a bunch of negative things to point out, but overall it's enjoyable. I do not know why it's enjoyable though. Going between Screw the Pooch and the kiss scene around the world. Episode 17, and this episode was one I was easily the most excited to watch this season, considering I've heard it's one of the greatest Family Guy episodes of all time. And by I've heard, I mean, as Mark put it at the top of his ranking list. But is it all that good? Nah. Okay, so basically, Brian gets community service after getting a DUI, where he meets an old lady named Pearl. At first, he thinks she's an old hag, but later he finds out she used to be a big jingle singer back in the day, but was rejected by the public after trying to sing normally. He then introduces her to the world she's missed out on, and at the end of the episode, she's killed off in one of the stupidest possible ways imaginable. They literally have her be run over by a truck, and then she's dying at the hospital, and they try to make some emotional scene out of it, like make Rubber in Christ her fatal injury was a gag, but just made it a two-parter, instead of the thin white line. The actually interesting and funny stuff here was Peter and his plotline. Basically, he grows a beard and then some little birds build a nest in there. When I first saw the plotline, I thought it was gonna be the most boring shit imaginable, and that they ran out of plots again, but it ended up being surprisingly heartfelt and entertaining, with Peter growing very emotionally attached to the birds, and then doing some clever gags using the birds as well. If this plotline was its own episode, I really have no doubt in my mind that this could have gone at the top of the list, which is a crazy feat considering we've had two of the greatest Family Guy episodes of all time this season alone. But no, sadly, it's just a little bit lacking in airtime, because they had to make way for the crappy Brian main plot. And what do I think about that main plot? Well, it fucking sucks to be quite frank, I actually hated it. The first third of the episode is just Brian being lonely and sad and not finding a girlfriend. Fun fact, in the first scene of this episode, Brian dumps a girl on their first date together, middle of the date, because she didn't know the correct pronunciation of a sort of wine. Yeah, gee fucking whiz, you stupid retard, I wonder why you're single. Like, genuinely, who the fuck came up with this? I do not feel any sort of compassion for this character. This season alone, he's raped the race dog, lost his owner thousands of dollars, got his branch of the family nearly entirely disowned, got addicted to drugs and directed a porno. He is a hedonistic asshole. I do not care that he's lonely. He deserves it. Then in the second third of the episode, Pearl is just an old hag, which is genuinely unpleasant to watch. It's just her being rude to Brian. There's not even any jokes. And in the final third, they try to make Pearl and Brian have this deep emotional connection, but that doesn't work either, because like 70% of it is taken up by Brian singing this horrible, like I mean it's subjective, but just horrible song to Pearl. And even though the end was very good, with tugging at my heartstrings, I don't even care anymore. This was such a horrible plot, there's not even a reason for her death to be this sad. The injury that got her there was a gag. The worst part, this is not a good episode, although Peter's plot was in here. Peter's plot carries the thing so ridiculously hard. It's crazy. This episode low-key doesn't deserve its low ranking it got. The Brian plot was so bad, like unenjoyable bad. Going between Mr. Saturday Night and the Wiener is, but let it be known that if the main plot was its own episode, it would have gotten near the bottom of the list, and if Peter's plot was its own episode, it would have gotten probably at the top of the list.
It's the worst job I've ever had. Well, except for one. Excuse me, would you like to taste my smoked meat log?
Stewie gets a new girlfriend, Olivia. He then promptly breaks up with him, and Stewie goes insane. There's also another side plot about Peter and the family meeting some nudist and Meg falling in love with their son, so the two families become good friends, but Peter and Lois are still weirded out by them. But in the end, they make a sacrifice and all is well. I gotta say, this one peaked around the middle of the episode for me. I loved the Stewie-Olivia dynamic and the nudist jokes were funny as fuck, but at the end was just sort of lackluster. In the nudist plot, Peter and Lois make a sacrifice, which I usually think is pretty sweet and a good conclusion, but right here, there's literally nothing to it. There's no special spin or twist, they just give off a good impression to this random boy that I can guarantee we are never seeing again. Same for the Stewie and Olivia side plot as well. They make Stewie break up with her and then leave her be for the rest of the episode. The problem here being that they break up like 4 minutes before the end, and the Stewie going insane stuff was incredibly lame and not funny at all. However, I have to add, Brian being rejected from theater school in the first 6 minutes, in the most brutal way possible, makes up for the lackluster end 100,000%. It brought joy to my heart. Overall, I do still believe this was a good episode. A bit boring at the end, but funny to make up for it. Going between the kiss scene around the world and a very special Family Guy freaking Christmas.
Jeff! What are you doing here? Look, I'm not supposed to see you.
Your parents invited me.
My parents? But they wouldn't.
Yes, we would.
Oh my god, what are you doing?
We were wrong, Meg. If you like Jeff, we should give him a chance.
Yeah, and we wanted him to feel welcome in our home.
Mom, I need new batteries for my Walkman. Hey, why is everybody else naked?
Lois thinks Peter is too jealous after he gets angry at her for going out to dinner with an old friend. So she suggests that they hire a therapist, which promptly suggests they date other people for the time being, which ends when they discover they both have jealousy problems and get back together. There's also the side plot about Stewie and Brian being glued together. That's it, that's the entire plot. In my opinion, this episode is very similar to the last, starting off decent, peaking hard in the early middle, and then having a pretty bad ending. I actually liked the Lois Peter plot ending, but that was the weaker plot of the episode anyway, so I didn't even really bother. Also, they sort of do this incredibly annoying thing here, where they simply change plots in the middle of the episode. The episode is going from Peter being jealous to them dating other people, in this weird but funny cutaway style sequence. The ending of the Stewie plot was horrible though. Basically, they order a glue in the beginning of the episode, and that glue takes 2 weeks to arrive. And the episode ends with the glue just arriving. That's the end of the plot. They try to make the ending a bit more spectacular by making them save some girl from a well, where they focus too much on doing bad jokes like, there's a guy with big arms tickling a midget. Which I need to add, despite only being ever a few seconds long, that joke confused the actual fuck out of me and left me with a bad impression of the episode in my mind. Because what? This isn't funny, this is manatee level jokes. And this stupid scene leads to the plot finishing incredibly poorly. Like the part where they save the girl from the well is only ever like 10 seconds long. Overall, this was another decent to above average episode, and also the first enjoyable private plot we've seen in the series next to Rhode Island. Going between Method to Madness and the kiss scene around the world.
Thank you very much. This next one is for all the ladies out there.
Peter, look, there's Dave and Dottie, the nudists.
Well, hey there, Griffins.
No way, it's them again, right? Anyways, this one sucked. Basically, Stewie goes to the UK to live on Jolly Farm, a TV show. But he gets on the wrong plane instead and goes to the Middle East. God, I am so tempted to make an immigration joke right now. Basically, they escape from the Middle East and go to Europe 13 minutes into the episode. And the episode is called European Road Show. Also, I forgot to mention, but this episode is a road to, which means they get to the point 13 minutes into a road to. Just wow. Anyways, once arriving in Europe, they go through a couple of other European countries before they finally arrive in the UK. And Stewie finds out the series is fake. Whoa, what a stupid fucking plot, wow. It takes so long to get into it for that to be the ending. Also, it's horribly paced, but I'll get to that later. Anyways, there's also a super fun side plot. Yippee! Okay, basically, Peter and Lois go to a Kiss concert and Lois fucks up some of the lyrics at the show, leaving Peter mad at her. But everything is fine because Lois, randomly, without any explanation, just knows one of the band members from before he was famous, and they get invited to make a studio album. What? I do not care for anything in this episode at all. It fucking sucks. Not once has Peter ever even mentioned Kiss in the show. This comes out of nowhere and is not enjoyable at all. How is this relevant to anything, and more importantly, why is this a side plot in a road to? On top of that, this is easily the most unfunny episode yet. This entire episode's humor consists of stupid, dragged out scenes of dialogue between two characters that read like a talentless writer tried to imitate Smiling Friends. All of this is just so horribly boring. If I had to guess, probably half of the episode consists of dragged out jokes. There's like a 1-minute scene of a TV interview, Ryan reads Stewie's letter for like a minute, they perform a song for like 3 minutes, and there's a 1.5-minute scene of them arguing with a German tour guide, and nothing makes sense at all. This is the worst road to in the show next to Road to India. It sucked. Walking between Brian Wallows and Peter Swallows and the Wiener is. Okay, first of all, I want to apologize for the horrible quality of the footage in the background here. For some reason, the very legal site I get my footage from just specifically had this episode in poor quality than all the other ones, so I'm sorry about that. Anyways, this episode was pretty good. Basically, it's just an anthology where they do 3 different plots. In the first one, Peter has no bones. In the second one, the Griffins get superpowers. And in the third, they're all just tiny and adorable. Usually I hate anthologies and I despise the other Family Guy viewer mails they did, but this one was surprisingly strong. I think that's mainly because they used viewer mail, or at least I believe they did, no clue if these are real ideas fans sent them for this one, and didn't just take scrapped episode ideas and put them into an episode. Or even worse, random event XYZ, but Family Guy. Trust me, you are going to see a lot of those in the future. The writers really got lazy. Yeah, I liked the episode. All 3 concepts were really good and they executed on them well. Going between Peter Griffin, husband, father, brother, and Death Lives.
Hey, Quagmire, watch this.
Hey, kick me!
I know for a fact that nothing is dethroning this until season 10, where another one of my favorite episodes come up.
I'm not gonna...
Do it!
I'm Stan and I was wrong. I'm singing the Stan wrong song. I shouldn't have taken that chance. Now here's my remorseful dance.
Do the kicks! Jazzier!
The season finale to season 3, and oh my god did it hit. Right here we have our very first milestone, that being the 50th episode, and also our very first banned episode. Apparently this episode was banned because of the depiction of the Jews here, but we'll get to that later. Basically, Peter hires a Jewish man to help with their finances, and it turns out he's really smart. So he tries to make Chris Jewish, but fails due to Lois intervening. This is one of the best Family Guy episodes of all time. There's so many things right with it. The I Want to Do song, the humor, the pacing, the one-off character they introduce here, the cutaways, it's all simply perfect. There is nothing to complain about. On top of that, this episode has a distinctly different animation style than the rest of the season. It looks a bit cheaper, crappier, and maybe a bit more like season 1, but it's infinitely more charming. Also, I want to add, I was really surprised by how tame this episode was. Going into this, I was expecting something really edgy, but this was actually very tame. I have no clue why this got blocked. So keep in mind, they control Hollywood. Proof Noob, Billions Must Die, Chat Alert, Chat Alert. There's really nothing to say other than this episode is great, and you should simply go watch it right after you're done with this video. Going at the top of the list, season-wise, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, overall. This is better than The Boom, one of the greatest Family Guy episodes of all time.
Oh, look how low I've sunk. Taking credit for something a smart Jewish person did.
Oh, that's okay, Peter.
No. People have been doing that for too damn long.
It is the white devil that has propagated, exacerbated, instigated. Line?
Instigated our hatred like a Buick.
Okay, so that is basically my opinion on season 3 and all of its episodes. Personally, I thought for some reason that this season was going to be some big masterpiece, and even though it's not, I still believe it was sort of alright. There was a lot of bullshit in here, for example the thin white line or lethal weapons, which I shit on like 5 times in the video, and also just boring episodes like Mr. Saturday Night or Grinders Hollywood. But in my opinion, it was all worth watching because of When You Wish Upon a Weinstein, To Love and Die in Dixie, and The Fish Out of Water. 3 of the best Family Guy episodes ever. Was the season better than season 2? No. Was it better than season 1? It's pretty debatable. So, with all of that having been said, have a good one, and take care.
And when I wake up, I recognize you looking at me for the pay cut. But how much I be looking at you from the face down? Or make 11